You have got to be kidding me. First contact specialist Zixtal muttered, mandibles clicking in irritation as Sexy stared at the ancient warning carved into the crystalline surface of Pluto's largest moon. Another one? That makes 17 so far, confirmed research lead Critique, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with excitement as they captured another high-resolution scan, all with essentially the same message. Danger, do not disturb the sleeping giants of the third planet. And variations of seriously we mean it, and this is not a drill, added junior researcher Miko, her tentacles wrapping around her data pad as she scrolled through their findings. Don't forget my personal favorite from the Mars ruins. Look, we're not joking. Those things are terrifying when they wake up cranky. The three alien researchers huddled in their environmental suits, surrounded by the sterile whiteness of Karen's frozen surface. Their small research vessel hung in the void above them, its sensors continuing to map the entire Kuiper belt for more ancient artifacts. So let me get this straight, Zixtal said, pacing back and forth and leaving precise geometric patterns in the frost. Multiple advanced civilizations, spanning what appears to be at least several million years, all left warnings about Earth, about the humans, who have been in their electronic age for less than 2 centuries and haven't even established a permanent presence beyond their own moon. Critique added helpfully. Exactly, Zixtal threw all 4 arms up in exasperation. It makes no sense. They're practically infants in terms of technological development. What could possibly be so threatening about them that caused multiple Type 2 and 3 civilizations to just leave them alone? Miko's tentacles rippled thoughtfully. Well, there was that interesting bit in the Venus archive about them being mostly harmless while dormant. Yes, followed by 17 exclamation marks and what appears to be the equivalent of, but holy quantum fluctuations, you do not want to see them when they're properly motivated, Critic chittered. The linguistic analysis suggests the author was experiencing severe anxiety while carving that particular warning. And yet here we are, Zixtal sighed, about to completely ignore multiple dire warnings from civilizations far more advanced than our own, just because we're curious. There was a moment of silence as they all contemplated this fact. We're definitely going to wake them up, aren't we? Miko asked, not really needing an answer. Oh, absolutely, Critic confirmed cheerfully. The Council of Sciences is practically salivating over the potential research opportunities. They've already approved the contact mission. Well, Zixtal said, checking the atmospheric readings on their suit for the 100th time. At least we'll finally find out what all the fuss is about. Assuming we survive long enough to document it, Miko added helpfully. The 3 researchers made their way back to their ship, leaving behind yet another ancient warning in the endless night of the solar system's edge. As they prepared for the journey to Earth, none of them noticed the small text carved beneath the main warning, written in what would one day be identified as Ancient Proximan. P.S. If you're dumb enough to ignore this warning, at least don't mention anything about their coffee supplies being limited. We lost 3 star systems that way. The first contact team's initial approach to Earth was cautious, methodical, and by all scientific standards, completely textbook. They positioned themselves just beyond lunar orbit, broadcasting the standard peaceful contact protocols on all known frequencies. Their sensors were primed to capture every possible detail about humanity's response. What they got instead was a series of increasingly enthusiastic messages from something called Twitter and Reddit, countless amateur astronomical photographs, and what appeared to be millions of humans instantly creating something called memes about the situation. Are they making jokes about first contact? Zixtal asked incredulously, watching the data stream in. I believe they are. Critic confirmed, their bioluminescence flickering in confusion. And if I'm interpreting this correctly, at least 30% of their population is suggesting we come down and fight them IRL? What's IRL? Miko asked, her tentacles tangled in confusion. In real life, supplied their AI translator. Though I should note that many of these challenges appear to be non-serious in nature. They seem to be engaging in something called shitposting. Language, Zixtal admonished the AI. No, that's the actual term, the AI insisted. I'm also detecting widespread use of something called copypasta, involving various scenarios where humans defeat alien invaders through improbable means. Many of them involve something called a Florida man. This is not how first contact is supposed to go, Zixtal muttered, watching as humans across the planet seem to alternate between genuine scientific curiosity and creating elaborate jokes about the situation. Where's the panic? The religious upheaval? The existential crisis about humanity's place in the universe? Oh, those are happening too, Kritik noted, scanning through more data. They're just being processed primarily through humor and something called viral videos. Speaking of which, several humans are already attempting to sell t-shirts with our ship's image on them. Merchandising rights already! Miko exclaimed, her chromatophores flashing with delight. You have to admire their entrepreneurial spirit. Before anyone could respond, a new message came through. This one official-looking, and from something called the United Nations Security Council. Finally. Zixtal sighed with relief. Some proper diplomatic contact. The message was indeed more formal, welcoming them to Earth and suggesting a meeting with world leaders. It was the postscript that gave them pause. P.S. If you're planning any funny business, please be advised that humanity has collectively watched every alien invasion movie ever made and has extensive plans for dealing with scenarios ranging from Independence Day to Mars attacks. We're also pretty sure we can get Jeff Goldblum on the phone if needed. What's a Jeff Goldblum? Kritik asked. According to my database search, the AI replied, he's an actor known for, among other things, helping defeat alien invasions with a laptop computer running something called Windows 95. There was a moment of silence on the bridge. The ancient warnings are starting to make more sense, Miko observed quietly. The actual landing ceremony was scheduled for 3 days later, giving humanity time to prepare, and the first contact team time to study human protocols. What they discovered during those 3 days did nothing to calm their growing concerns. They've been fighting each other constantly for their entire recorded history, Zixtal reported during their final briefing. And yet somehow they've managed to advance their technology at an exponential rate while fighting. Most species either destroy themselves or focus on peace before achieving significant technological progress. Their technological development is concerning, Kritik agreed, bringing up a timeline. They went from first powered flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. That's impossible, Miko suggested. I was going to say terrifying, but yes, that too. And yet they still haven't solved basic problems like climate change or unified their governance, Zixtal noted, scratching their head with 2 different arms. It's like they're simultaneously incredibly advanced and remarkably primitive. Oh, and here's a fun fact, Miko added, her tentacles wiggling with what might have been either amusement or anxiety. They invented nuclear weapons before they invented wheeled luggage. Think about that priority order for a moment. They all did. It wasn't comforting. Perhaps we should reconsider this mission, Zixtal suggested, not for the first time. The ancient warnings... Too late, Kritik interrupted, pointing at their sensors. We're getting thousands of small aircraft approaching our position. They appear to be... civilian vehicles? Indeed, the airspace around their designated landing zone was filling with everything from news helicopters to amateur drones, all trying to get the best possible view of the historic moment. They're treating this like a sporting event, Miko observed, watching the crowds gathering below. There are people tailgating in the designated safety zone. What's tailgating? Zixtal asked. According to my research, it's a human tradition involving cooking food in parking lots and consuming fermented beverages before significant events, the AI supplied helpfully. They're having a party, Kritik translated. They're having a party to celebrate meeting potentially dangerous aliens. To be fair, Miko noted, they appear to have parties for everything. I found records of humans celebrating something called a Super Bowl that involves gathering in large groups to watch other humans chase an oddly shaped ball while consuming vast quantities of something called 7-layer dip. Before anyone could question what 7-layer dip might be, their sensors registered a new development on the ground. The gathered crowds had spontaneously begun singing something called The Final Countdown by Europe. Europe? Zixtal asked hopefully. One of their governing bodies? A musical group, the AI corrected. From Sweden, which is in Europe, but isn't Europe itself. Human geography is complicated. Everything about them is complicated, Kritik muttered, watching as more humans arrived, many carrying signs with messages ranging from Welcome to Earth to We'll trade sister for alien technology, and aliens are just spicy angels. Well, Zixtal said finally, shall we make history? Or possibly become part of an elaborate human joke, Miko added. I'm still not entirely sure which. Probably both, Kritik decided as they began their lambing sequence. Definitely both. The actual moment of first contact was simultaneously exactly what they expected, and nothing like they had prepared for. Yes, there were the official delegations from various governments, the scientific teams ready with their instruments, and the military forces maintaining a respectful but obvious presence. But there was also the crowd of civilians who, despite multiple warnings and security cordons, had managed to get close enough to hold up their phones, which the first contact team had quickly learned were somehow simultaneously communication devices, cameras, entertainment centers, and sources of something called dank memes. Zixtal led their team down the landing ramp, all of them dressed in their most formal diplomatic attire. They had studied human customs extensively during their 3 days of preparation, and were determined to make a good first impression. What they hadn't prepared for was the human in the inflatable T-Rex costume, who somehow made it past security just as they reached the bottom of the ramp. "Welcome to Earth!" the costumed human bellowed, arms waving wildly. "We have dogs and pizza and will probably try to pet you." The security teams finally caught up and gently but firmly led the enthusiastic welcome party away, but not before they managed to throw what appeared to be a plush toy in the shape of an alien holding a sign saying "Ayel Mao" at the startled first contact team. "Is this normal?" Zixtal whispered to their AI translator. "For humans? Based on my analysis of their historical events? Yes, actually. This is remarkably on brand for them." The official welcoming ceremony proceeded more or less according to protocol after that, though the first contact team couldn't help but notice that several of the world leaders seemed to be trying very hard not to laugh at the T-Rex incident. "On behalf of humanity," the UN Secretary General began, "we welcome you to Earth. We hope this will be the beginning of a peaceful and productive relationship between our peoples." "We come in peace," Zixtal responded with the carefully practiced phrase, "and seek to establish diplomatic relations with humanity." "Wonderful," the Secretary General replied. "We have prepared a series of cultural exchange events and scientific discussions. But first, we thought you might enjoy experiencing some human hospitality. We've prepared a small reception. A party," Kritik whispered to Miko. "They're throwing us a party." "Of course they are," Miko whispered back. "Did you expect anything else at this point?" The reception turned out to be both formal and surprisingly casual, with diplomatic discussions happening alongside what appeared to be an impromptu dance contest after someone introduced the alien visitors to something called the Cha-Cha slide. "Your species is fascinating," Zixtal told one of the human scientists later, after they had been convinced to try something called pizza, which they had to admit was remarkably good. "You've faced countless global challenges, yet you maintain this incredible capacity for joy and celebration." "Oh, that's because we're all slightly insane," the scientist replied cheerfully. "Did you know we used to think radioactive elements were healthy? We put them in everything from watch faces to medicine. We literally had to learn the hard way that glowing in the dark wasn't a good thing." "That's horrifying," Zixtal said. "Yeah, we do that a lot," the scientist agreed. "Find something new, immediately try to either eat it, fight it, or turn it into a consumer product. Sometimes all three. But hey, we're still here, and now we're having pizza with aliens. Speaking of which, want to try it with pineapple? It's controversially delicious." Before Zixtal could respond, there was a commotion near the buffet table. Kartik had discovered coffee. "This is amazing!" the normally reserved researcher was announcing to anyone who had listened, their bioluminescent patches practically strobing with excitement. "You just drink this whenever you want?" "Oh no," Nico muttered, watching as Kritik accepted their fourth cup. "Should we stop them?" "Probably," Zixtal agreed. "But I'm kind of curious to see what happens." What happened turned out to be Kritik spending the next 2 hours explaining their entire theory of quantum mechanics to increasingly amused human scientists, using only interpretive dance and elaborate hand gestures. "Your friend seems to be enjoying themselves," the human scientist observed, watching as Kritik attempted to demonstrate string theory, using a party streamer and 3 appetizers. "Yes," Zixtal agreed, "though I'm starting to understand some of those ancient warnings about your beverages." "Oh, that's nothing," the scientist laughed. "Wait until they try energy drinks." The following weeks were a blur of diplomatic meetings, scientific exchanges, and what the humans called cultural integration. The first contact team learned several important things during this time. 1. Humans had an unprecedented ability to adapt to new situations, primarily by making jokes about them. 2. Despite all their warnings about taking things slowly, humans were already designing t-shirts with Kritik's face on them, from the infamous coffee incident, with slogans like "Mood before space coffee" and "Aliens need their space jala too." 3. Most importantly, They learned why all those ancient civilizations had left warnings about not waking humanity up. It wasn't because humans were particularly warlike, though they were. It wasn't because they were technologically dangerous, though they definitely were, in an endearingly haphazard way. No, it was because once humanity knew for certain they weren't alone in the universe, they became unstoppable. Within 6 months of first contact, humans had developed 15 different universal translator apps, 3 of which actually worked. Started an interplanetary food truck business. Convinced Critique to start a TikTok channel about alien science. It went viral. Begun work on faster-than-light travel, mostly out of spite because someone on Twitter said it was impossible. Created at least 6 new sports combining alien and human athletic traditions. Established the first interstellar meme exchange program. Started planning the first human-alien K-pop group. They're not sleeping giants, Zixtal realized one day, watching as humanity enthusiastically embraced their place in the galactic community with all the subtlety of a supernova. They were never sleeping. They were just waiting for a reason to really get started. Is that good or bad? Nico asked, her tentacles busy helping her craft the perfect response to something called a Reddit thread about alien cuisine. Both? Critic suggested, still slightly buzzing from their latest coffee experiment. Neither? Does it matter? They're letting me try something called a Monster energy drink next week. Those ancient civilizations weren't warning us about humanity being dangerous. Zixtal continued, ignoring Critic's caffeine-fueled enthusiasm. They were warning us about humanity being unstoppable once they had a goal. They were warning us that once humans knew what was possible, they'd rewrite the rules of the possible just to see if they could. And because it would make a good TikTok, Miko added. Especially because it would make a good TikTok, Zixtal agreed. The truth of this became even more apparent in the months that followed. Humanity's response to learning about various alien technologies wasn't the expected awe or intimidation. It was more along the lines of, "Oh, cool, we were working on something like that. Want to collaborate?" They approached everything with the same mixture of scientific curiosity and irreverent enthusiasm. When shown advanced alien quantum computers, they immediately started working on ways to play Doom on them. When introduced to sophisticated alien meditation techniques, they created space yoga fusion classes. Their response to learning about alien cuisine was to immediately start a series of interstellar food fusion restaurants, leading to dishes like quantum quesadillas and nebula noodles. But perhaps most terrifyingly of all, they started solving problems that had stumped other civilizations for millennia. Not because they were smarter, but because they simply didn't know something was supposed to be impossible. Wait, you're saying you can't teleport because of the quantum uncertainty principle? A human physicist asked during one exchange. Have you tried just ignoring it? That's not how physics works, Critic had protested. Yeah, that's what they said about heavier-than-air flight, the physicist replied with a shrug. We did it anyway. Here, look at these calculations I did on a napkin during lunch. 6 months later, the first human-alien joint research team successfully teleported a sandwich. It wasn't particularly efficient, and the sandwich arrived slightly toasted. But as one human researcher noted, "Hey, free toasting. That's just value added." The first contact team found themselves writing their own warning, to be added to the others scattered throughout the solar system. But unlike the others, theirs read differently. Warning to future explorers, the beings of the third planet are awake now. They have dogs and pizza and TikTok and an unlimited supply of coffee. They will absolutely try to pet you, feed you, teach you their dances, and solve your civilization's greatest scientific challenges using methods that shouldn't work, but somehow do anyway. They will make memes about your most serious cultural traditions and turn your ancient mysteries into trending hashtags. And worst of all, you're probably going to love it. P.S. Yes, they're still putting pineapple on pizza. No, they won't stop. We've tried. As Zixtal finished carving the warning into a particularly picturesque asteroid, they couldn't help but smile. The older civilizations had been right to leave warnings, but they've been wrong about one crucial thing. Humanity wasn't a threat to be avoided. They were a force of chaos and creativity to be embraced, even if that embrace came with a side of bad puns and viral videos. Hey, Zixtal! Critic called from their ship. The humans want to know if we're up for something called karaoke night. They say it's a crucial diplomatic tradition. Is it really? Zixtal asked suspiciously. Probably not, Miko replied, her tentacles already styling themselves for the occasion. But it's going to be fun anyway. And that, perhaps, was humanity's greatest weapon all along. Not their technology, or their determination, or even their ability to adapt, but their unshakable conviction that every moment, even first contact with alien civilizations, was an opportunity to have fun, make friends, and possibly create some really great content for their social media followers. As Zixtal followed their friends back to the ship, they made a mental note to update their report to the Council of Sciences. The report would read simply, "The ancient warnings were right. Humanity changes everything they touch. But maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what the galaxy needed all along." They paused, then added a postscript. "Also, we're going to need more coffee. Much more coffee." Years later, when new alien species discovered the warnings about Earth, they found them much changed. The dire warnings of old were still there, but they were now accompanied by tourist reviews, restaurant recommendations, and enthusiastic testimonials about humanity's hospitality. And if those new visitors looked carefully, they might notice something else. The galaxy was a lot more interesting, a lot more connected, and a lot more fun than it had been before humanity woke up and joined the party. As for the First Contact team, well, Critique's TikTok channel hit 1 billion followers across 3 galaxies. Nico opened the first combination alien-human fusion restaurant in space, specializing in quantum comfort food. And Zixtal wrote a best-selling book titled, "How to Train Your Human. They Will Actually Train You Instead, but That's Okay." And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the ancient civilizations that left those original warnings were probably watching it all unfold, shaking their heads in amused disbelief as humanity did exactly what they'd feared, changed everything. Just not in the way anyone had expected. 5 years later. And that's how humans revolutionized galactic transportation, by applying the principles of yeet. Critique explained to their utterly baffled audience at the annual Galactic Sciences Conference. Their bioluminescent patches were pulsing with barely contained excitement, fueled by their 6th espresso of the morning. In the audience, Zixtal buried their face in all 4 hands while Miko's tentacles wiggled with suppressed laughter. After 5 years of regular exposure to humans, they'd gotten used to this sort of thing. But that violates at least 3 fundamental laws of physics, protested one of the older scientists, their crystalline structure vibrating with indignation. "Yeah," agreed the human engineer standing next to Critique on stage, casually sipping from a cup that read, "Math is just spicy philosophy." "That's what makes it fun. Want to see the TikTok where we figured it out?" The conference hall erupted into chaos, which was pretty much standard for any presentation involving human scientific methods these days. Later, during the reception, because humans had successfully convinced the galactic community that all scientific conferences needed an after-party, Zixtal found themselves cornered by a group of newly arrived alien researchers. "Is it true?" one of them asked, their atmospheric membrane quivering with curiosity. "Did humans really solve the Gesktal equation by, what's the term, vibing with it?" "Sort of," Zixtal admitted. Though to be fair, they also used something called interpretive dance, and a truly concerning amount of energy drinks. The solution came to them at 3 a.m. while they were trying to teach our quantum computers to run something called Minecraft. But it worked. "It did," Zixtal agreed. "That's the thing about humans. Their methods seem insane, but they get results. Last week they solved a millennium-old mathematical proof while trying to optimize their pizza delivery routes." Across the room, Miko was holding court at her newest restaurant branch, explaining to a fascinated group of aliens how she'd combined traditional Proximan cuisine with something humans called comfort food. "The secret," she was saying, her tentacles expertly plating what looked like a cosmic hybrid of mac and cheese and quantum-shifted molecular gastronomy, "is not thinking too hard about why it shouldn't work. That's what I learned from humans. Sometimes you just have to try something ridiculous and see what happens." Meanwhile, Critique's latest TikTok was going viral across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. It featured them explaining quantum entanglement, using only cat memes and interpretive dance, with a soundtrack that somehow merged classical music with something humans called dubstep. The comments section was filled with both serious scientific discourse and an unprecedented number of space cat go brr variations. "You know what the real irony is?" Zixtal mused to their original First Contact team as they watched the conference descend into what humans would call organized chaos. Those ancient warnings about not waking humanity, they're still finding new ones, and now humans are treating it like a galactic scavenger hunt. "I heard they're making a reality show about it," Miko added. Last week they found one that just said, "Look, we tried to tell you," and turned it into a meme format. Speaking of shows, Critique interjected, their patches still flickering with caffeine-induced enthusiasm. Have you seen the latest ratings for So You Think You Can Dance, Intergalactic Edition? The episode where that Betelgeusian tried to break dance was trending for weeks. Before anyone could respond, there was a commotion at the conference center's main entrance. A new species had arrived for first contact, looking appropriately nervous about meeting the galactic community. And there were the humans, already heading over with welcome bags that probably contained an unholy mixture of snacks from at least 12 different planets, along with what appeared to be custom-made "Welcome to the Galaxy" t-shirts. Should we warn them? Nico wondered, watching as the newcomers were swept up in humanity's enthusiastic welcome wagon. About what? Critic asked. The fact that humans will immediately try to teach them their TikTok dances? That they'll probably have a fusion restaurant featuring their cuisine within a week? That someone will definitely try to pet them? All of the above, Zixtal chuckled, but also about the fact that 5 years from now, they'll probably be standing right where we are, watching it happen to someone else, and wondering how their life turned into this beautiful chaos. They watched as the new species was introduced to something called a conga line, which had somehow become a standard diplomatic practice ever since humans joined the galactic community. You know, Miko observed, her tentacles swaying thoughtfully. Maybe those ancient civilizations didn't leave because they were afraid of humanity. Oh? Zixtal prompted. Maybe they left because they knew that once humanity woke up and joined the galaxy, nothing would ever be the same. And they wanted to give us all the joy of discovering that for ourselves. That's surprisingly profound, Critic noted. Also, who wants to help me teach the newcomers about karaoke? I've got Space Oddity queued up and ready to go. As their friend bounced off to spread more human-inspired chaos, Zixtal and Miko shared a knowing look. The galaxy had indeed changed in ways no one could have predicted. It was louder now, messier, more chaotic, and infinitely more interesting. And they wouldn't have it any other way. Final transmission from the First Contact Team to the Council of Sciences. Regarding the ancient warnings about Earth, after 5 years of close observation and interaction, we can definitively say that all previous assessments were simultaneously completely right and entirely wrong. Humanity isn't a sleeping giant to be feared. They're more like a caffeinated toddler with a physics degree and an unshakable belief that friendship can solve any problem. And somehow, against all logic and reason, they keep proving themselves right. P.S. We're going to need to update the galactic standard for possible. Again, humans found another loophole in physics while trying to optimize their video streaming services. PPS. Yes, Kurtik is still making TikToks. No, we can't stop them. At this point, they're too powerful. PPPS. Miko's latest fusion dish somehow achieved sentience. The humans immediately adopted it and named it Kevin. Kevin is now pursuing a degree in theoretical physics. End report.